Greetings, Temple Beth Shalom family. This is Rabbi Boxed. Trying something a little different this week. Rather than sending out a message about the Torah portion in the Haftarah, I figured I would record a video with a few words about this week's Torah portion and see how the response is. And maybe we'll do this every week or every few weeks. We'll see what happens. So this week's Torah portion is the second half of what would have been the double portion of Parashat Kedoshim, but because this is a leap year, we actually split those two up. So this week we're doing Parashat Kedoshim, which is Leviticus chapter 19:1 through 20:27. And Kedoshim literally means holiness. This is the holiness code. We have a revisit here to the Ten Commandments, but really in greater detail. Not just don't do this, but like in great detail. So, for example, you shall revere his mother and his father and keep my Sabbaths. I, the Lord, am your God. Pretty simple. But then it goes to when you sacrifice an offer of well-being to the Lord, sacrifice it so that it may be accepted on your behalf. There's a little bit more in depth here. And he who eats of it shall bear his guilt, for he has profaned what is sacred to the Lord. That person shall be cut off from his kin. We're talking, of course, about the sacrifices that are made to fire. But there's more in here about reaping the harvest of your field, making sure that you leave the edges for the widowed and the poor and the orphan. Don't steal, don't defraud your neighbor, don't insult the deaf. Don't render an unfair decision, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of laws here that explain why this is the holiness code. We are to be holy because God is holy, and these are the ways in which we are to be holy. I want to turn our attention to a couple of verses, first of all. Leviticus 19:18. Probably one of the ending of this verse is probably one of the most studied phrase. Certainly, in my opinion, it is the foundational idea in the Hebrew Bible, and that is Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, ani Adonai. Love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. God is telling us to love our neighbors as we want to be loved, as we love ourselves. And really, as Rabbi Hillel put it, that's it. The rest of the Torah is commentary. So that is the foundational statement right there, right in the middle of Leviticus. But I want to turn to another verse, and this is chapter 19, verse 33. When a stranger resides with you in the land, you shall not wrong him. 34. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as one of your citizens. You shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I, the Lord, am your God. This statement that God makes here, reminding us that we were strangers in the land of Egypt, is probably one of the most often found quotes in the Hebrew Bible. It's one of the most often read, often found phrases. Da 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 da. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt, or because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Da 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 da. This is the way you should behave. This is the way you should act. And then it follows with the end of 36. I, the Lord, am your God, who freed you from the land of Egypt. And then 37, you shall faithfully observe all my laws and all my rules. I am the Lord. There it is right there. We are to behave this way because God is holy, and we are to be holy because God reminds us he saved us from freedom. Saved us from slavery and gave us freedom. He redeemed us in Egypt. And this is something that we constantly live with. This is why we say it every year at the Seder, while we say it many times throughout the year in Torah study, and pretty much that's love the Lord your God, love your neighbor as yourself, the foundation, and because God is holy, And because God freed us out of the land of Egypt, we are to be holy. Those three concepts are really it. That's what the Torah is all about. And so I want to leave you with that. If we just strive to do a little bit more of loving our neighbor as ourselves, loving God, and remembering that because God freed us from slavery, we are to be holy like God. If we can remember those three ideas and live our lives as such, how much better the world would be. Shabbat Shalom.